This is Leah Sparks for the Print Culture Project, and I researched Letitia Elizabeth Landon, basically her life and then her publishing history. So, some biography on her early life. She was born August 14th, 1802 in London. She learned to read from a neighborhood friend who would scatter alphabet letters on the ground, and then Landon would make words out of the letters and then read them. And then she acquired her love for poetry from her teacher, who was a poet, and she would be able to recite classical works just from her memory. And then her brother said that she would spend the days thinking of ideas, and then at night she would go and write her stories. So she was very inclined poetically as a younger child. Her first publications, The Landon Family, was a neighbor with William Jerden, who was the editor of the Literary Gazette. And the Landon's mother took some writings of hers to Jerden to see if there was any potential in her becoming a writer and publishing. Jerden said that the writing was amateur in style, but it had original and powerful ideas to them. And Jerden published one of Landon's poems in the Gazette in 1820. Landon was around 18 years old at this point. It was entitled Rome, and it was under the pen name L. In 1821, Landon released her first volume of poetry called The Fate of Adelaide. It sold pretty well, but she actually didn't get that much money from it. And then from 1821 to 1824, Landon started to write a weekly series of poetical sketches for the Gazette under L.E.L. pen name, and that's what she used many times throughout her career. She kept her identity a secret, but people wanted to know who was writing this, so Jerden said that L.E.L. was a young lady yet in her teens, and then a bunch of young men became obsessed with that idea that a young woman was writing this poetry that they were reading. So she had a lot of fans at this point, and even students in Cambridge University, they would rush to get a copy of the Literary Gazette so they could read her series and then discuss it. Her second major publication was released in 1824. It was another volume of poetry. It was called The Improvisatrice and Other Poems. It went through 6 editions in its first year, and at this point she was really popular. She said, "I awoke one morning and found myself famous." That's why she is sometimes referred to as the female Byron, because just like Lord Byron, she had this seemingly overnight rise to fame and had a lot of people reading her work. She was more well known for her work published in literary annuals rather than her volumes of poetry. She would write poems to accompany the pictures in the annuals, just like a lot of the other writers that were published in the annuals. And then she also edited and wrote for the Fisher's Drawing Room Scrapbook, which was kind of another version of a literary annual. She did this for financial reasons, and then the last one was published after her death. So Landon and Jerden kind of had this scandal. Jerden was kind of predatory towards Landon as a teenager when they first started working together, and then she actually had 3 of his children who were later sent to foster homes, so no one would know that this was going on. But later in life, the Sunday Times wrote a report about this happening and how they had children together out of wedlock. Jerden was married as well and had like 8 kids with his wife. So it was a big scandal, and Landon tried to recuperate her reputation by marrying a Scottish man in 1838. She also wanted to get out of London, so she thought marrying him would be a way out. But she died from an accidental overdose or suicide the same year that she got married to him. During her life, Landon published 6 collections of poetry, 3 novels, a book of short stories, and was featured in many literary annuals. Basically, all of these were published while she was alive, and that's where when she had most of her publicity for her writings. I think like 1 or 2 were published after her death from a list of projected works. One was like half finished, and someone else finished the other half of it. And then Landon's poetry came back up during the early 1980s feminist movement. It was like reanalyzed and republished a few times. Some people say that since she wrote about like love and death and beauty, that she was kind of a sellout because that is what sold well for women writers back then, and she was kind of playing into the social construct of women writers. So some say she was a sellout, but others say this is empowering to women because she used that mold to get herself some more money and reputation. And then here is the works cited.